Good morning, everyone. Ready for lesson 10 of personal finance, opening and maintaining a transaction account, a checking account. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. This section is actually going to take us quite a while. I'm planning on 4, maybe 5 days for it. So the lecture part of it might take 2 days, but that's fine. We're good with that. Okay, so we're going to talk today about checking accounts. Um, what do you have to do to open a checking account? Well, the only thing that's required really is that you be of a legal age and able to fill out a signature card. Most banks, and I know it's this way at the credit union where I bank, they have a special account for younger people. It requires a parent's name on it, but it allows you full access to a checking account, just as you would normally have. And both my kids have a checking and savings account. Of course, they're both adult age now, so it doesn't really affect them as much, but they've had those accounts since they were younger. Um, it's always wise to have a second person's name on an account, even when you're 25, living on your own, away from home. It's still wise to have a second person's name on the account, um, just in case something happened to you, somebody else could access money on your behalf. Somebody you trust, obviously, not just a random stranger, but um, it definitely needs to be somebody you can trust. Okay, so the only thing you really have to do is present ID at a bank, fill out a signature card, whatever other information they require, and that's it. It's really rather easy to open an account. One thing you will want to check is as you're looking at banks and where should I go, um, and we've talked about this before, credit unions do tend to be more reasonable in their pricing. Um, but you want to look at a bank's fees and that kind of thing before you open an account. Fees vary on checking accounts. Sometimes they'll have one account that's got a really good pricing on it, but it only allows you a certain number of deposits and withdrawals per month. And that's not really something that you may know ahead of time how much you will need. So be careful watching things like that. Okay, so when two people share an account, it's called a joint account. So there's a couple terms we need to go over here. Um, when you have a joint account, you need to be really careful of all the words in your joint account. And I know this sounds weird, but if you had an account, for example, my name is obviously Michelle Parker. My husband's name is Craig Parker. If our bank account read Craig Parker and Michelle Parker, then we would both have to sign every check. But it doesn't. It reads or Michelle Parker, Craig Parker, or Michelle Parker. So that means that only one of us has to sign the check. Very, very weird, but it's banks are picky about kind of those kind of things. The same thing goes on a particular check. If you get a check written to you and someone else, then you both have to sign it to endorse it. And we'll talk more about that later. Okay, so we need to talk about two types of joint accounts. The right of survivorship, which guarantees access to that account if one of the people in the account that owns the account dies. Um, and then there's the tenants in common does not guarantee that. Okay, so what's the difference and why would you go one way or the other? Well, even with a right of survivorship, it does not guarantee you immediate access to all those funds right away. So if you have a tragedy happen in your household and somebody, the person who has a joint account with you dies, that money could be put on hold until the estate is settled. Okay. The deceased money is still liable for estate taxes, so the bank is going to want to keep money in there to pay those taxes. After the taxes are paid on the estate, the amount from the account is paid to the surviving account holder, and then you go on from there. We went through this when my dad passed away, that we had to shift accounts and get his name off of accounts and things like that. So you have to be careful with things like that. The tenants in common is another thing that we dealt with when he passed away, because um, he was the overseer, I guess. I don't know what the right word is there, but I had two aunts at the time who were invalids. They were incapable of writing checks or paying their own bills. They were both victims of dementia. So my dad had control of their money, and he would pay their bills each month. And then he died before they did, which was completely unexpected. But so we had to go through getting his name off of those accounts and making sure that my mom could take over for those. And it's a long drawn out process. It's rather painful at a time when you're really not wanting to deal with it. But tenants in common was what we did with those those aunts that had dementia, because he didn't need their money. He didn't want their money when they died. In fact, my mom dealt with this. Um, she didn't get all their money when they died. She shared it with her other siblings. So they had what was called a tenants in common. When my aunt who owned the account died, the amount in that account became part of the estate and was divided among all the siblings, rather than belonging just to my mom, who was the other one named on the account. So there's different things that you may want to do, and you just need to consider the legal ramifications of those actions before you do them. If you have an account with a parent now, you probably need to make sure that that has right of survivorship. We are not guaranteed tomorrow. But I do recommend that you don't normally have an account that's just your name on it. Even I have a single sister who's in her 40s. She has my other sister's name on her account. It's just a safety measure to make sure that somebody can help her if something happens to her. Okay, so we're going to talk about 4 types of guaranteed checks. A guaranteed check is a check that provides the receiver with a guarantee that he's going to get the funds. Regardless of what happens in the world around us, those funds will be there guaranteed. So there's 4 types: the certified check, the cashier's check, money order, and traveler's checks. This may be as far as we get today, and that's okay. But let's talk about each one of these in turn. The certified check is your personal check that a bank guarantees to pay when it's presented to them. So you write a check for a deposit on a car. Let's say you're going to buy a new car. They want a certified check to take as a deposit. So you go to your bank, you tell them I need a certified check. You write your own check. Usually it's on bank paper, and they give you a check that has your account number on it. The bank verifies that those funds are available, that you have that much money in your account, and they place a hold on those funds to make sure that you don't go out and spend them at the grocery store the next hour. Okay? And then they imprint the word certified on that check, and a bank officer signs off on the certification. Yes, they charge a fee for this. I honestly don't remember how much it is, but it varies from bank to bank. Some banks, especially credit unions, will maybe do 1 or 2 for free in the course of a certain amount of time, maybe 1 every 6 months or something like that. So that's a certified check. Not much different is a cashier's check. But the cashier's check is quite a bit different. The account that the check is written out of is actually not your account. You pay the money up front, and then the bank writes a check saying for that amount. Now, when you do something like buy a car or buy a house, a certified check or a cashier's check is usually required. Okay? Because they want to know for sure that they're going to get those funds. And they're usually large accounts. Banks will only accept guaranteed funds before issuing a cashier's check. So, for example, I have my account at Delta Credit Union. I cannot walk into SunTrust Bank and ask for a cashier's check. number one, it would be stupid because I have an account at Delta and I might as well get it from them and they'd probably charge me less. But SunTrust doesn't, the only way I could do it at SunTrust would be to carry in the cash and do that. Um, or carry in an actual certified check, which again, why would I do that? I'd have paid for it twice. So you have to have guaranteed funds before they will issue a cashier's check. Okay? If you have questions about this, please send them to us and I will find out the answer for you. Okay? The third type of guarantee check is a money order. And I'm sure that we've probably heard of this before, but you wonder, why in the world would somebody spend all their money on a money order? Money orders are expensive. They're, usually $10 a piece or something like that. You can get them at Walmart. You can get them at the convenience store. You can get them at the post office. Why do this? Well, some people are really afraid of banks. It used to be really bad when I was younger and when my parents were younger, because people who came out of the Depression, who had grown up in the Depression, were afraid of banks, and legitimately so. So, but there are some people who just will not open a bank account. Maybe they're here illegally. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it's just a case of they're afraid of a bank. So they don't have a bank account. So they use these money orders to pay for their utility bills, their maybe their car payment or whatever, because they don't have regular checks and they can't send cash to pay for their car payment or pay for their utilities. So they buy a money order to do that. Okay, the last one is traveler's checks. These are not as much in use anymore because we now have debit cards and ATMs and we don't really need traveler's checks. But I remember when I was a little girl, when we'd go on vacation, my dad would go to the bank and get a whole bunch of traveler's checks because they were safer to travel with. Most places like restaurants and hotels and stuff like that will not take an out-of-town check. It's risky for them, so they won't do it. So in order to use a check instead of, say, an ATM card or something like that, you would take a traveler's check instead. And they're issued for specific amounts, like a $20 check or a $10 check, and you would, endorse them just like you would a regular check. Okay, that's all the time I have for today. So we will pick up tomorrow with writing checks and reconciling accounts. So let me know what questions you have, and we will deal with that as we are able to. And thank you. Have a good day.